Perfect. Ooh, actually, we can chat all we want here. The countdown, the anticipation. There's something about a countdown I find to be particularly effective. It gives people time to come to the table. I found that even Dr. Kurt Schwieters does this for his channel, for his page on a reliable update. He will just kind of be quiet and he'll wait for everyone to gather around. And yeah, it works because it takes time for people to click the video. It takes time for people to get on board, really. Oh. All right. Well, this is Father Mitchell Bechtold here, and welcome back to another episode of Next Caller. I am most fortunate, indeed, we are very fortunate to have Deacon Ernie Kachemba and Father Ben Kachemba here as our guests today. So Deacon Ernie, Father Ben, you're our next callers.
Well, that's great. It's a pleasure to be on with you, Father Mitchell. And again, hello to my son, Father Ben. Good to see you, Ben.
Hi, Dad, and thanks, Father Mitch. Thanks. Glad to be on here.
Well, thanks for being here. And the question we're all dying to know now, which one of you is the older?
Well, who has the most hair on his face?
Yeah, Grizzly Adams there.
There we go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I am known as Junior. Junior, that is. So.
Yeah, that's good. That's an endearing nickname to receive, I think. So, Deacon Ernie, of course, Father Ben Kachemba and Deacon Ernie Kachemba are father and son, and they are both incarnated here in the Diocese of St. Cloud. And anyone who knows them, loves them, they're just known and loved by a lot of people, not only in the Melrose area, but also throughout the diocese. And so this is an opportunity to just get to know them, get to know a little bit about their story, and just hear about the way that God's grace works in families. And so, Deacon Ernie, we had a chance to get to know each other very well when I was assigned over in Melrose. Now, when I showed up, it was just after you had sold Ernie's grocery store, correct?
2010.
2010, and I showed up in 2000.
Grocery store. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your vocation story, what led you to it, because you were ordained in the year of 2004. And so that must have been its own challenge, being operating a business and being a deacon for the diocese.
Well, my faith story is very much rooted in Catholicism. My father, of course, started on a farm, bought a grocery store in Melrose in 1950. One thing that has never left him, though, as part of his business is his faith, the faith in God. And because God was very loving and very helpful to him throughout his life and with us as his family, he always instilled in all of us that as part of a family that's in business, we have a responsibility to give back to our community as well, share our faith, share the good things that we have to offer. And so very much rooted in Catholic morals, very much rooted in Catholic responsibility, and just our love for community and for God.
So when did you take over the grocery store, and when did you enter seminary formation for the diaconate?
Initially, I went to Crozier Seminary in 1970 at the age of 15. I was a freshman in high school at that time. I left a year later because I simply got homesick. I wanted to come back and stayed home for about a year or two, and then I wanted to re-enter into the seminary But at that time, the pastor says, "Oh, wait one more year. If you still have that dry, then you can." Well, in that moment in time, then I felt my vocation was to take over the grocery store and continue to work with my father. And so we did that. Then in 1985, my, my wife Denise and we took over the store from my father. So we bumped along in the business. It was a great way to raise our family. It was a great community to serve. And of course, our Catholic faith was very dominant. But when I was first asked, and this would have been in about 1995, Mitchell, somebody asked me if I would ever consider the diaconate. And at that time, Mitch, I didn't know there was such a thing as a permanent diacon. I always thought they were transitional deacons, and your next step was into the priesthood. So when they first asked me, I had no idea what they were talking about. And so what really changed me was I did a tech experience up at Belle Prairie. That really instilled the spirit within me. I started working with religious education, and my faith continued to grow, and my zest and love for Christ continued to grow, which was shared by my wife and certainly my family. They all loved their Catholic faith. And then after turning it down, the call for the diaconate 3 times because we felt we had other family obligations to take care of, then we had a pastor. His name was Father Vince Leeser. He stopped and asked me if I would reconsider it. And so we did, and the rest is history. We went through 6 years of formation, and in 2004, then I was ordained a deacon, but I couldn't have done it without my wife. She's very supportive. She is my soulmate. She is my person that has helped me, and the support of our family. They were all very, very supportive.
Sure. Yeah. No. Denise is just as known and beloved as both of you. She's just she's a real sweetheart, and yet at the same time, she's got a real backbone to her. There's no doubt that she's I mean this in no offense, like no, not to diminish your role, but she just brings a lot of strength and a lot of backbone to the family. That's for sure.
She certainly does. Yes.
Yeah. Now, Father Ben, I would imagine your first job was over at the grocery store, huh?
Well, as a young boy, Dad would often have me come to the store after school. I went to St. Mary's School, which was not too far from the grocery store, maybe about 5-6 blocks. And so naturally, they just asked us to walk over there. And so we would help with boxes and help with stocking shelves and help fronting shelves. And so little jobs like that, my dad would ask us to do on certain days of the week, and usually it was about 2-3 times a week. But also helping out in different parts of the store. I used to help out in the bakery on Saturday mornings. Once in a while, I'd help out in the produce department. But yeah, just doing various jobs around the store just to get a little experience doing some work and also to get a little experience helping customers and addressing their needs. So yeah, it was a good place to kind of, as a young kid, to grow up. And I tell you what, at the grocery store, everybody stops there. So it was such a kind of a main hub to see everybody in the community. So that was a kind of, looking in hindsight, a pretty neat opportunity to grow up in that environment.
Father Mitchell, we've lost your voice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Yep, much better. I think about the story of St. Ambrose of Milan, who, if I'm remembering correctly, he was governor of his community and was called forth by the people to become bishop to the people in his community. And it was, when I think about you two and that same, I think there's a parallel there because of the fact that if anybody were called forth from the Melrose community, I really think it would be you two to serve in that way because you're so congenial, because of the fact that you're so personable, you were so well known, and really both have that heart for service. Now, Father Ben, I am interested to know, did your dad enter seminary before you entered, or did you enter before he did? How did your vocations sort of intertwine?
Well, an answer right away to your question is Dad entered the seminary or the School of Theology while I was in high school and junior high. And so I certainly entered the seminary after he started formation with the diaconate. And so I would say that my vocation story started earlier in my life, but certainly Dad had a big impact on my ongoing discernment because, like he mentioned, he had such a powerful tech retreat and he did a lot of tech retreats after that, helping out with directing them. And so his faith really came to the fore for him. And that certainly impacted me as I was going through junior and senior high as well. So, but I would say probably my first seeds of my vocation began when I was a younger boy.
Okay, yeah. And now with Deacon Ernie, you were eventually ordained in 2004. Father Ben, when did you enter seminary?
I entered right after high school in 2001.
Okay. Wow. So you two were both going through seminary at the same time. Deacon Ernie, where did you go to seminary?
St. John's University. It was a 5 or 6 year formation process for me. Started with aspirancy the first year and then right on through till I graduated in 2004. So great experience, okay. Great school. I can't say enough good things about St. John's University and the instructors and the people that helped form me. They are part of who I am and what made me. So I'm very appreciative.
Sure. And Father Ben, were you a St. John Vianney Seminary man?
Correct. I was
okay.
For my 4 years of undergraduate seminary at the University of St. Thomas.
Okay, very good. Now, Deacon Ernie, I would like to know, did you find it very challenging to go through the permanent diaconate formation process while at the same time still in part raising a family and still, even though a lot of your kids were older at that point, but then also running a business? What were some of the challenges you faced during that time?
Oh, just running a business, having 4 children, younger children at the time, being socially responsible to our community. And the biggest challenge is, where do you find the time to get it all done? The second biggest challenge is I never went to college before I started at the School of Theology. So the whole theological language was really foreign to me. It took me a long time to get used to the language. I also found out while going through formation how little I knew about my faith. I mean, I was shocked. Even though I was a cradle Catholic, going through school, it just shocked me how little I really did know. So the formation was really, really important. And I don't think I'd be the deacon today without the formation that I received, without the education that I've received. I may not know everything, but I know the source of where to get some of the answers. And of course, there's always a lot of support from the school and from the faculty itself.
Well, and the seed that your formators planted must have taken root because, you're now serving as the director of the office for the permanent diaconate, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that started about 4 years ago. By the way, about 4. I'm in my 4th year of being the director. Yeah.
Has it already been 4? Well, yes. I was going to ask, has it already been 4 years?
Yes. So there's a lot of good things. We have a lot of new applicants that are applying, but one thing that's really exciting are the number of Hispanic applicants that are getting formed and wanting to become deacons themselves. Right now, we We have about 5 of them that will be applying. And we hope that within 3 years that we have at least 5 of them ordained, with more coming through the pipeline after that. So that's been really exciting. As you know, in central Minnesota, St. Cloud Diocese, and some of the other regions, the Hispanic population, Father Mitchell, has really grown. And they are very hungry to take responsibility of their faith, to help educate, take care of some of the sacramental work for their own people. And it's just been a joy working with them. They are so dedicated and committed. So a lot of good things coming through the diaconate right now.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I know I've had the good fortune of working with the Latino community, and it just seems like anywhere that community is planted, there is a great fervor in their faith and a great desire to really, I don't know, assert themselves and to own their, like to take responsibility in sort of forming the next generation and even forming themselves in the faith.
Right now, there's a formation class. It's called the Emmaus Institute. It's held at St. John's. And right now, Father Mitchell, there's about 50 Latinos that are going through the formation program. And this has been their first year for many of them. And we hear nothing but good things, and we're seeing a lot of good results from their formation. So we have a bright future ahead of us.
Oh, that's great. So, Father Ben, one of the stories that you've shared with me, and you've given me permission to share here, is the story about your grandpa Al, because you said that his faith was a strong influence on you. In part, and you recounted the story of him that it would be late at night, even closer to midnight, and he would just sort of pace the room praying his rosary, and he would make sure to stay standing so that he didn't fall asleep. And how that sort of experience was just very influential for you, even at a younger age.
Yeah, Grandpa was a very special person in my life. He lived on the same lake as what our family lived on, and so as a young boy, he would pick me up in the summer times at my dock, and we'd go out sun fishing, and we would spend some time catching fish, and then even going back to his house and behind a certain cabin, we would be scaling the fish. And during that time, he would just share about our faith, talk about heaven, talk about the angels, and just, and I really looked up to him. He was just kind of a work hard, play hard kind of guy. He was very well respected in the community, but his faith was so deep as well. And he loved to have fun. He loved to fish. He loved to hunt. He loved to garden. He just was such a doer, and the story that you mentioned is more what I heard from my grandmother when he was younger, when they first got married. And during those years, there were some tough years where, he first started the business, and it was a smaller business, the grocery store. And in order to make ends meet, he would also play concertina at ballrooms and so forth for weddings. But he would always come back, and he'd always insist that he would get his rosary in. And so Grandma told me that he would pace back and forth just to make sure he didn't fall asleep. And oftentimes Grandma would just really encourage him to come to bed because it was late, but he just really felt that he needed to do that. And so anyway, things like that were pretty impressive about him. And so just kind of taking in his personhood and his faith, it really inspired me as a young kid to live my faith.
Well, and if there's something we see from the example of sacred scripture, is the role that a father plays in sort of enabling, if not inspiring, the vocations of their sons. So whether it's the father of King David who chooses him, who sends for him while he's still out in the field, even though he initially left him behind, to Abraham, who of course really bestows his blessing upon Isaac, who bestows his blessing upon Jacob. And if we see that role, we begin to realize the powerful influence, the significant, dare I say, the crucial influence of a father's example on their sons and their daughters.
Yeah, I think no doubt about it. I mean, even statistics bear it out that especially particularly, actually for all children, but particularly for sons, the example of the father is very important. And so, yeah, for me to have his example, to this day, I'm just very grateful because there's a lot of people who maybe didn't have that grace. And so And then later on, I just, like Dad said, you learn more about your faith, especially in seminary, and you're like, how beautiful our faith is. But if it wasn't for that initial person who modeled it for me, gosh, you never know where I would have been, distracted somewhere else in the world, or, but he really did give that time and that example to me.
Sure. So, Deacon Ernie, I've got to ask though, if your father was such an influence for you, and even such an influence for Father Ben, who gave you your love for golf?
Well, how that started was in the grocery business, they would give premiums when you bought certain products. They would give you gifts. Well, one of the gifts that he had gotten was a set of starter golf clubs, and so that's how we got started. Up until that point in time, till 7th grade, I was certainly a baseball, softball fanatic. But once I took out a golf club and hit one of those golf balls, and it went twice as far as I could hit any other baseball, I was hooked forever. And so here we are, 50, 60 years later. We're still playing, we're still trying, but we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, and Father Ben, not to expose you here, but when it comes to most golfing tournaments, either hosted by the diocese or those to which priests are invited, you and your dad tend to be at the top of the ticket.
Well, the thing about it is, Dad and I kind of complement each other well. I'm more of the straight ball hitter, from the tee box, but Dad is much better around the greens. The finesse, he plays a little more than I do. And so if we can kind of get a good day where we can complement each other, and then of course, usually you have a few more people that you can add to the team, it actually works out pretty well. But it's kind of the chemistry, let's just say the chemistry can be right.
Yeah, well, and I'll say, Deacon Ernie, the Meadowlark Golf Club is my favorite golf course that I've ever golfed on, in part because it really identifies with my skill level. It seems like whether you're more advanced or even whether you're a beginner like me, you really can have a lot of fun on that course. And I know that your family was instrumental in just kind of helping that get off the ground. In fact, it sounds like there's a lot of things that were instrumental to getting off the ground and being stable because of the Kachembas.
Well, it's just a lot of fun. And that's the whole idea behind golf or any hobby that you have. Have fun, enjoy life, enjoy what God gives you, and take advantage of it if you can. And wherever you can, if you can share it, all the better. So, yeah, good.
Well, and that generous attitude, I think that generous attitude really comes into the circumstances we're in, right? Because as we get into this pandemic, we can be concerned with our own health, or we can be concerned with our own needs as things are adjusting. How am I going to live now? And if I don't know, if through prayer, God can be our inspiration, if his will can be our inspiration, and if the needs of others before our own can be our inspiration, I think it's a great gift, because this time of sort of social distancing and social isolation doesn't need to be a time of selfishness, but really of generosity.
You're certainly right, Mitchell. And as I get older, the more I can give, that's the greatest gift, because it just seems you get so much more back. The more you give, the more you get back. And so whether it's family, whether it's grandkids, whether it's community, it really is a joy to be able to give and not expect anything in return.
Sure. Well, it's been a real pleasure having you here. So tonight's episode was a little different. So I've done it where we've premiered recorded episodes before. I've had it where we've done totally live episodes. This was a totally live episode. I don't have the Facebook screen up here, so I'm not seeing your comments. If in the future you would like to do something where you're able to ask our guests questions live, go ahead and mention that in the comments section below. Besides for that, Father Ben, Deacon Ernie, thank you so much for being here. You're a real treat to know, and your dear friends and dear brother deacon fathers here. And I just I thank God for your ministry, and so I wish you all the best in the future.
Thanks, Father.
Thank you, Mitchell. Appreciate it. God bless you, and thank you for your commitment to your faith and to God too.
All right, well, thanks. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.
Bye now.